Hello and welcome back to Ensuring Success 2024, Day 2, your favorite year-end CPE marathon. We are here in Dallas, Texas, and we're about to start a session on CAS, C-A-S, and we'll figure out what that means in a minute. But first of all, I'd like to thank the sponsors who make this event possible, because we could not do this without them. And they include ADP, Avalara, BotKeeper, Canopy, CPA.com, eFile4Biz, WriteWorks, SafeSend, SureLink, Wolters Kluwer, Xero, and Zoho. So thank you to all of them. We are very, very grateful that they're participating in this event with us. Next, I'd like to explain how CPE works for those of you who are just joining us for the first time. The way we confirm your attendance is we post a code, a 3-digit code, at the bottom of the screen 3 times during the session that you'll need to write down so that you can regurgitate it back to us later to show us you were here. Each time we post this code, we'll make sure you're awake and paying attention, because you will hear this sound. That'll let you know that, oh, I better look at the screen and write down this code if I want CPE credit. So we'll do that 3 times during the session. Also, there is a box under your video that says Ask a Question. If you have any questions for our speakers, you can write them in that box and they'll come right to us here on the stage. And if you have tech questions, up at the top of your screen, there is an email address, info@EnsuringSuccess.com. That's where you can ask questions about CPE, or if you're having technical difficulties viewing the program or have anything tech-oriented, we have people standing by to answer those questions today. We are on social media at #DecemberCPE, so be sure to look for us on your favorite social media sites and add to it if you'd like. Talk about what a great time you're having at Ensuring Success. I'm Gail Perry, Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor, and I'd like to introduce our panel really quickly before we get started, and so I'll just tell you who they are, and then they can tell you a little bit about themselves. So we are joined today by Ed Kless, Jackie Meyer, Kane Polikoff, and my co-moderator, Alexander DeFelice. So I'd like you each to give us a little introduction. Ed?
Sure, happy to. My name is Ed Kless. I am with Meta Consulting Academy, metaconsultingacademy.com. I was with Sage for about 20 years, but I decided that what I've been doing for my whole career is consulting to people who do consulting, hence Meta Consulting.
Outstanding. All right.
Hi, I'm Jackie Meyer, or Dr. Jackie Meyer, CPA, recent leadership and doctorate. I call myself a recovering CPA firm owner turned serial entrepreneur. My current endeavor is TaxPlan IQ, a tax advisory platform.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kane Polikoff. I've been doing this for almost 28 years, so I feel young. I'm a member of Cohen Resnick, a partner in charge. I lead what's called the Client Advisory Services practice and been doing client advisory services for about 7 years now, and looking forward to having some fun today.
And I'm Alexandra DeFelice, Director of Marketing and Business Development for Payne & Fears Law Firm in Southern California. I am not a CPA, but I hang out with them on TV, as you will continue to hear for the rest of the day. And I'm here to co-moderate with Gail, and I am the designated bell ringer.
All right.
All right, we're going to get into talking about CAS. You've heard of CAS, right? C-A-S, maybe you've heard of C-A-A-S, or C, I don't know how many A's there might be, S, and we're not sure. There's been confusion ever since day one as to what we mean by CAS, and if that A stands for accounting or advisory or audit or asset management. I think the list goes on. There are lots of A's that it could be, but we're going to figure out what that A really means today. And I'm going to start with Ed, because he's the one who came up with this title.
Blame it on me. I basically want you to pick an A. I don't care what it stands for, but I want you to pick one. And Kane said advisory. That's great. I'm happy that you said you put the stake in the ground. We are advisory. I think that the confusion lies around the folks who are doing things like accounting and advisory, and it's sending a mixed signal to the market, especially if they are trying to develop a practice that is serving, say, $500 a month customers and $5,000 or $50,000 a month customers. And the analogy that I make is you have these firms that are trying to be McDonald's and Morton's. They both sell beef, but it's two very different business models. If you went into a Morton's expecting McDonald's prices, you're sorely disappointed, and vice versa, right? And if you go into a McDonald's expecting Morton's service, you're sorely disappointed. And I think that the problem is with CAS is that it's sending this mixed signal to a lot of different people, and it doesn't stand for anything unless you say we're advisory, and that's what we do. Or we do accounting. That's great. Or we do assets, whatever you want. But what is it?
Yeah, I think everybody, when they first heard CAS, went to Google. I mean, I went to Google and I'm like, what is this? Is this accounting or advisory? I don't know. I mean, I love advisory. I'm obsessed with advisory. But I know that this actually is a systematic problem that's much bigger that I talk in a soapbox a lot about. We don't have clear definitions in our profession or industry of any of these terms. We don't know exactly what tax advisory is. We don't know what CAS is. We need more, dare I say it, standardization and clarification around these things.
Yeah, and I, before my previous firm, we were a CAS, and I like to say CAS is, we are CAS, but the accounting is silent. So that's why. So even to add a little bit more interest to that, so we do, from our organization, we do both the accounting and the advisory, but we do stress as the outcome of the advisory. So I think everybody, I talk to many different practice leaders across the country, and there's always a debate of what CAS means, and I like to define it from three perspectives: from a people, from a process, and from a technology. And when you think on the people end, we're really becoming an extension of our client's business. And that can range from doing accounts payable all the way up to the CFO level. And our clients are expecting advisory. So accounting is only one piece of that. We do have some clients where there's kind of a hybrid approach where we're doing more of the advisory and they're doing the accounting or vice versa. But that is the expectation when I meet with our clients, is they look at us as an extension of their team. Then on the technology side, which is the optimization and creating that tech stack, they're looking for us to come in with the best and brightest technology providers, and I know a lot of them we've been talking to the last couple of days. And it's how do we leverage the technology to do more with less? So we want to have the technology as an outcome. So spending time doing data entry or reconciling the books, you can spend more time looking at the information, looking at the data, than to be able to advise on that. And then the last piece is the process side, is the controls, the automation, to do the desk procedures, but to set up that automation. So those three ingredients together is what I define as CAS, and that could be payroll, HR related, or even accounting related, and that's how we define it today.
Yeah, makes sense. It's really exciting, though. We're actually at a pinnacle right now. Us even having this discussion around whether it's accounting or advisory. Everyone has been pushing advisory for decades, but now we're finally at that point where I think the masses are embracing it. And so to me, accounting is compliance looking back. Advisory is the future, not just the future of the client, the future of our profession, honestly.
True. And I think that when you said it right, we're historians normally. When you look at CAS, we're coming in a lot of cases, cleaning up the books. They're a mess and helping to put things back on track. But clients want to look ahead. They want to get into FP&A and look at projections and forecasting. And so it's to be able to make sure that historically things are good, because if they're not good, it's hard to look in the future. It's really taking it from both perspectives.
Yeah. One of the things I do know that with cloud, 70 to 80% of the transactions are not even touched by human beings anymore, right? So there's so much of that stuff is happening from the background, and with the advent of ChatGPT and other technologies like that, I think this is where people are trying to say, all right, we've got to really get on this advisory stick. But we were talking in the green room, and I think part of the challenge for accountants is they have to forget first before they learn. There's some stuff that they need to forget about, and the forget about is, that I can't do advisory because I'm doing their compliance, so therefore I can't do advisory. No, to your point, Kane, I have a friend of mine. He's based out of the UK, and one of the things that they talk about is that they pick up where other firms leave off. So they don't do any of the accounting. They're like, we don't do accounting at all. We want you to, whoever does your accounting, fine, send it over to us, and then we pick it up from there.
So however you define CAS, we're curious to know what the size is of the practice that you have, no matter how you define that. You may not have chosen your A yet, but I think...
I will launch that poll after we do our CPE, because I think the last time
we had a little conflict.
there was a
Okay.
little conflict.
Yeah, since
are
we're,
we ready?
Since we're breaking here
Don't mess
anyway.
with the CPE.
Yeah, okay.
Are we ready for it, Gail?
Yeah, okay. We're ready. We're going to display your first CPE code on the screen. So write this 3-digit code down if you're planning on collecting CPE for this session. We'll leave that up there for a little bit longer,
And then I'll launch into that poll.
Tell us about the poll before you launch it.
Yeah,
since the
so
code's
right now, I just want to understand the size of your CAS practice. Is it less than 10 staff, more than 11 to 30, 31 to 50, or 51 and above of that are dedicated, right, to this practice? So do you think are we ready to do it, to launch this, Gail, or?
I think we're...
Give it another second.
Yeah, we're ready.
You guys, okay. So I'm going to just again, how many people in your firm are dedicated to this particular practice? And that could mean that they do more than one thing, but that they do this. So I'm going to send that out. Okay, of course. Go ahead. Actually, I want to delve deeper into the word advisory, okay? Because we had, Sean Duncan, who was just on this last session, and a few others, and he's kind of controversial, and he's saying, I advised on where to go for Disney, and that counts, and I build them. He's a little bit innovative there. I'm going to start with you, Kane. Give me like 3 or 4 bullets of what falls under advisory. What are you advising them about?
Yeah, so the deliverable that we provide is the financial statement of the financial package. So that is a deliverable when I call accounting. Advising is actually looking at the financial statements, looking at historical data, looking at key performance indicators, and meeting with our clients and understanding not the historic perspective, but looking ahead. What do you need to do to run your business better? Whether that's you need to look at your expenses, you need to look and focus on top line, but having those discussions is one of the key things. And it's not only looking at financial data. What we're trying to do is take HR, payroll, as well as operational data to bring that all together. So not only working with the CEO or CFO of the organizations, but look at the operations group for them to be able to be more efficient. So those are 2 examples. So it's having those deep discussions and looking at that information to be able to make recommendations.
Jackie, what else would you add to that?
Ooh, let's see. Well, I mean, my jam is tax advisory. So our deliverable and what I kind of transform my entire firm around is leading with tax advisory and not even accepting a client that we couldn't find an immediate 200% return on investment for. So that was quite innovative in 2016 whenever I was doing that. But, our deliverable is that tax plan and advisory report. We have an onboarding meeting where we discuss those milestones of what we're going to go through, and then we go from there to implement. We revisit it every year. So it's actually very, very specific what we do. And again, would love like the AICPA or somebody to come up with a program of exactly how y'all are doing it at your firm, if it's successful, exactly what tax advisors are doing, so that others can learn instead of just figuring out on your own.
Some kind of template to get them started, essentially.
So they do have a program and a workshop that they offer, but I don't know if it's how customizable it is to different types of firms. But to get people started, there's a 2-day CAS workshop that
And I think to that, CAS 2.0 is what we're talking about. So CAS 1.0 is really the transactional level, but the 2.0 is providing that playbook or that roadmap where we're trying to leverage and how to communicate with our clients and kind of provide that, because a lot of it comes to the upskilling of our talent and our team to have those type of conversations when you're, like you said, it is when you're used to being a controller and just looking down and looking historically. Now you have to look up and look ahead. I think that's where we're really trying to enhance learning and development for the industry so that we can have those type of conversations and we can make an impact for our clients going forward.
I actually have a question that leads into that, but I want to show the poll results. So it looks like 90% have less than 10 that are dedicated to this right now, and 5% said 11 to 30. I want to stick with you, Kane, for a minute, because you're going to be on a hiring panel later on, and we were talking about the kind of people that you can hire for this practice, and they don't necessarily have to be CPAs, right?
That's correct. Yeah, and it's good to hear the poll. So I started the CAS practice from scratch. I was my #1 employee. So I think a lot of folks that have 10 or less, and I think it's whether you have 10 or 20 or 100 or 200 people, it's you want to follow the approach that you need and to be able to do it correctly. And when you think about as you start a practice and kind of building that skill set, is you do want to have people that are fully dedicated. I think one of the challenges that I've seen when I've talked to new individuals or new firms that are trying to start new CAS practices, that they're bringing in the tax group or bringing or loaning individuals to be part of that group. And as you talked about, we need dedicated staff and a dedicated leader that can focus on that, because the client, it is an ongoing process. You have work you got to do every week, every month to be able to deliver that. And so it is critical in my mind to ensure that you have that dedication, because things do ramp up. You have the month-end close at the first 2 weeks of the month. There's a lot going on, as well as year-end close, quarterly close, and you have to have that team in place to support that.
So how do you get, I'm going to toss it to Ed, how do you get somebody that's a traditional accountant to learn this extra skill set and be able to talk to their clients about it?
So I think part of it is forget that you're supposed to be providing the answers, and instead focus on the fact that you're supposed to be providing new and better questions for your client,
Sure.
right? In theory, I would like to see even the concept of advisory go away, because that has this connotation of providing the answer. But Peter Drucker, the great management guru, he said, when asked why he was so successful, he said, "I replaced giving advice with being curious."
Yeah.
Right? So replace advice with curiosity. So be curious about the customer. Try to get an understanding of what their hopes and dreams are. Right? How can we help them become healthier, wealthier, and wiser? That's really what we're trying to figure out.
Right, and you hear the word consultant, and kind of going back to your question, is that we are hiring individuals that come from business degrees or have marketing degrees or extroverts and have a basic foundation of accounting, but they're not CPAs. Not all of them are, and we find in a lot of cases, if you have a strong learning and development program, onboarding, you get certifications on the technology, and you can have those conversations with your clients and understanding the information you look at, you can be meaningful. So I think that we'll talk, I know, later about staffing and scaling. We're trying to look ahead and not just look at the accounting as a foundation, but also looking at other attributes, soft skills, for example, multitasking, to be able to meet deadlines, which provide value. And when you look at CAS, that is an expectation. You have many clients you have to deliver to. You have to be able to talk. You have to handle escalations. You're running operations for a team and for a client, and you have to have those skills to support that.
So thank you. So Jackie, how did you get started? I mean, you were on the very beginning of this, like before, like I even said, last year people were going, can you spell CAS? So how did you decide that you were going to make this transition, and what would be like the first couple of steps that one needs to take?
Okay, yeah. So that's a packed, loaded question, but we'll go step by step here. So to me, I realized that I think there's something called, you're like an existentialist or something, where you're constantly questioning the why. And I realized that's me, because ever since I was a kid, I was always like, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do this? And that translated into being an accountant, like pushing back against the grain, right? And so just like Ed said, it's not about having the answer. The number one quality that you need to be a good advisor is to be able to ask great questions and have curiosity and really have a passion to like help find those answers and guide those answers. So I was kind of naturally inclined to do that. I was randomly prepping tax returns in college and then realized that I fell in love with magically producing more money for people. And that's why I got into it. And then completely transformed my firm, knowing that there was something more out there than the traditional practice. And, the gamut, when I said earlier about the AICPA needing to have training, they have done a really good job of sticking it with the CAS stuff and getting people over to it. I haven't taken the training, but I'm not sure if it goes into the level of here's the exact expense line item to look at in the P&L as to what you would ask or advise on. And that's the level of detail we need to be providing to other people.
Yeah, and we are actually, I'm partnering with AICPA to kind of help create that. So I think,
awesome!
So it is a big endeavor, and but it is, we're taking kind of the foundation of what we have that's been around for 10, 15 years, which is outdated, but we are trying to get to that point. So that is a goal that I have.
Love it, yeah. And then what was the second part of that question?
I was talking about how you
are the
transition. What would be like the first couple of steps?
Pick one client. We all have at least one client, if you're in a more traditional firm, that you know you haven't brought your all to the table for. And it might be 100% of the clients, honestly, because we're so drowned in the work. But pick that one client that's been asking you for advisory, that loves what you're doing, that's kind of your biggest fan, not the PETA, okay, not the PETA. And go to that client and say, look, I want to start adding advisory into my practice. I literally told Pete, my first client that I did this with, I said, hey, you're going to be my guinea pig. Instead of charging you $1,500 a year annually for a complex 1040, I'm going to convert you to this $12,000 a year package. I think I can save you about $20K a year. It was really low, like at the time. And he was so excited and just really embraced it and was like, I've been waiting for you to want to do this. This is what we want. And then I just kept going one by one through that client list to convert them. And then ending up selling about 60% that weren't a good fit for advisory, because not everyone is.
And now you mentioned pricing, which means I have to toss it.
All right. Ed's going to teach the class.
No, talk to Jackie. She's got the pricing tool out.
Before we do that, we should probably take another quick break and do a second CPE code for this session. So we'd like to display the second code. Be sure to write this down if you're planning on collecting CPE credit for this session.
Okay, I'll challenge Jackie and then I'll toss it to you, Ed. How's that? Okay. Because your friend Sean, who gave you the shout out from the last session, Duncan, we were having this conversation at something previous where he said, I'm going to bring them from a $450 tax return to a $12,000. He actually used $12,000. So I'm like, you guys are like kind of in cahoots or something. I don't know what's happened. But anyway, the other panelist, Nicole, she said, well, that's too much of a leap. I'm going to bring them from the $450 to then I'm going to give them something that's a little better. That's for $1,000. I'm going to give them a one-pager, blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, that's a scary leap of like how much more money, and like how do you make them, do you give them a taste of something for only a little money, or they're really okay with just throwing you additional funds?
Well, so to be transparent, I worked with high net wealth entrepreneurs, and so big dollars was not a big deal to them. Also, tax advisory specific, or TAS, if we want to call it, is the easiest ROI you can bring to the table with your estimates of what you can do and the savings you can provide and financial gains that you can bring to the table. So I literally just showed them a proposal of the estimated savings, never guaranteeing that, not a contingent fee on the back end, right? It's a value priced fee on the front end. Told them what my fee was, told them what that ROI was anticipated to be, and then every year we would revisit that, and then I would find new strategies I could bring to the table.
Okay, thank you. Now back to Ed.
Let me just first jump back quickly and say that's a great example of the 450 to 12,000.
Yeah.
That's a great example of McDonald's and Morton's, right? And how that is confusing to the marketplace. And I can see where this professional was like, I don't know if I can take somebody who I was slinging a Happy Meal to, and then decide to give them filet mignon with braised asparagus, right?
There's a lot.
That's a big jump. So one of the things, and I'm dead serious about this, if you really want to get into the higher end advisory, create a separate brand. Create a separate brand for that, or create a separate brand for your low end, whatever you want to do. I had a friend of mine, he had a accounting firm out in San Jose. They were serving a lot of people in the Silicon Valley sector. He was doing lots of tax returns, small tax returns, and he was doing high net worth individuals, stuff like that, where he was doing international tax shelters and all kinds of stuff like this. He was sitting with a Google engineer one day who, when he was told that he was going to pay $12,000, let's just say, for his tax return, said, well, you do my brother-in-law's for $450, right? And that's the moment that he realized, wait, this is causing confusion. So what he did is we say he cut the back of his plane off, right, where we have the people in coach, and he created this thing called Express Tax Service. Open it up across, put an enrolled agent in charge of it, sent all of the individual returns over to Express Tax, and then the accounting firm only handled the high net worth individual stuff, so they had the separate brand.
I think that's a great idea if you want to keep the express services or the Mickey D stuff, right? I didn't want to keep that. I loved working with high net wealth entrepreneurs. You could rub elbows, talk about really smart things all the time. And so I didn't want to work with $400 returns that I couldn't bring a return on investment for. So I rebranded my entire practice. It happened to be called Meyer Tax Consulting from the start. It just kind of pulled together. But then we were like, look, we're a concierge CPA firm now. We're leading with tax planning. We're moving all of our clients to this. There's no maybe no, kind of in between stuff. It requires a lot of good boundaries.
Yeah, and just coda to the story, he ended up selling Express Tax. Once he had it built, he just sold it off, right? Because once it was its own sustainable thing, you could easily find a buyer for just that piece.
But one thing is, like you said, is building a brand or identifying that separately from more of a discrete service provider, but it's also the value that you provide. So, and we try not to sell as a commodity, it's a value-added provider, and as we kind of meet with the way we've kind of structured our team is we built by verticals. We've hired individuals that are great at renewable energy or hospitality or real estate or government contracting. They come from that industry. They are a part of that. So when we're actually meeting with our clients and advising them, they've been in their shoes. They understand what it takes. They understand the pain points. They understand the value. And that's where we're able to provide a value for that pricing. So that's kind of how we're positioning ourselves in the marketplace as a value-added provider. But we have to, the proof is in the pudding too. You can't go and sell for $12,000 and not provide value, then they're going to go somewhere else. So you have to come in and actually execute too.
For sure.
I think one of the problems we have in the accounting profession is that the services are nebulous. Our clients don't know what CAS is. They know what tax is. They know what tax prep is. They know what auditing is. They know they can come to an accountant and get these specific things done. But when we say, well, we do CAS too, well, that's a meaningless term to them. And it's partly meaningless because, getting back to what's your A, it's different for everyone who's attending, everyone who's sitting here. So I think a big issue is how do you determine what you're going to do, and then how do you market it? How do you get that word out? And when you guys made the switch from being a regular accounting firm to, I mean, you weren't with Cone, but still moved from accounting firm to offering what you called CAS services, how do you, and you did everything at that point, how do you separate that and how do you make it a service line that people will say, well, I want that?
Well, let me just jump in here and say, I think part of the challenge is thinking of it as service, right? Yes, the traditional accounting stuff could be more along the lines of a service, and that's the McDonald's. After all, McDonald's, you don't go to McDonald's for the great food. You go for the consistent service, right? You know it's going to be quick. You know what you're going to get anywhere in the world.
Well, I go for the Happy Meal. But
is that right? Yeah, it's consistent. But so this notion of that being a service company. But what we've moved on beyond that is to either experience and or transformations. And I think when we get to the advisory side, we're actually helping transform them. And the phrase, from Ben Franklin, making them healthier, wealthier, and wiser. We are actually transforming them into something different. They become the product. So the line of business service model, here's our list of services, completely irrelevant to, no, we transform these people into beyond what they were. We make them, again, healthier, wealthier, and wiser.
Yeah, and it is the financial transformation. And I think that it's how you approach it with your client too. It's you don't want to come in and do the same thing the client's doing, right? Because that's not providing value. I think as you kind of take a step back and you look at the as-is process of how a client's functioning, in a lot of cases we find that they're not able to keep up with their books, they're losing people, it's hard to train their staff, and there's a bunch of pain point that they have. So one aspect is you can come in and just do exactly what they're doing. But what we try to do is kind of look at it and figure out how we can do it better than what they're doing today and providing that additional value. And I think that was their marketing and kind of selling the value proposition and having the testimonial. Or we've come in and we've deployed a new general ledger system, AP automation tool. We do automated reconciliation. We have a closed management process. And by the way, our controller comes from 25 years in the real estate practice. We're also going to look at, these are the KPIs. We're looking at, here's the expense line. Here's you're looking at your top line revenue. So we're coming in there and trying to transform that. And that's a lot of difference. Well, we're going to just provide timely, accurate financial statements. So I think it's selling the value and actually walking through that process. So when we start with a client, we do a questionnaire, we understand, we listen, we ask a lot of questions, and then we come up with a plan of action. And the one thing that we do have is a project management office, and that office is actually helping to drive the governance of the transformation of change.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I think the change, and the only thing that should be constant is change, right, as they say in everybody's world. So that by transforming them, change management is a huge change. It's not only you're changing the culture, you're changing how things are being done, and to get to that point, once you go live, that's only the first step of the process. The continuous improvement, the evolution. That's what happens next, and that's what the value comes, and that's how I look at it as we move forward.
Yeah, and beyond, so you have I think this notion of change is a little bit suspect too. Change to me is a physical thing. There's a physical change. Going from one system to another, that's a change. I move my iPhone from here to here. That's a change. But the transition or transformation is the emotional component. Of going from where you are now to where you're going to be. Jackie and I were talking in the background. But there's a philosophy problem called the vampire problem, right? So the vampire problem is basically, as much as I would try to explain to you, Gail, how great it is to be a vampire and why you should be a vampire, you don't know what it's like to be a vampire until you become a vampire.
That's probably true.
Right? That's okay, and that's the funny part of it. But let me just say that we all have experienced vampire problems. Having children is a vampire problem. You cannot explain to somebody who does not have kids what it's like to have kids. As much as you try to explain it, you can't, right? Getting married. Oh, there's lots of these different things. Even for different individuals, we've had these transformations. And that emotional reaction to that is that's what we're really selling, I think. It's not about the number. They're going to assume the numbers are right. That's your job. No kidding, right? But what are you doing to transform me, right? That's really where I think the future is going. You talk about the future of the profession, and all professions is that kind of level.
And I think the transformation is not just on our side, but it's on the client side too.
It's not even. It's them.
So for them to understand, for them to ask the questions, for them to provide that collaboration, because the clients that work for us are the ones that want to change and they want to be part of the solution. If we come in there and they don't want that, then it's going to fail, to your point. So it has to be, they have to learn to change just as much as we're changing the process. But it's how important and what they look at and what they want to do, and having them challenge us is also very important.
We have a few questions coming in from the audience, and I want to toss this first one back to you, Jackie. You talked about the transformation, and they said, how did you find the CAS clients and market the service to them? So you said pick your one client or whatever. How did you decide who that one or two and then more clients were going to be? And then how do you market it?
Well, I had already had several clients that were the right fit that just happened to be able to move over. So honestly, still to this day, physical location is important. I started my firm in Irving, Texas, where I lived. And then I had a South Lake address, which is one of the highest medium income areas in the nation, right? So just having that address, Pete, the guy I keep talking about, he found me on Google Maps, and he's a $20 million, oil and gas guy, right? And he came to my house for our first meeting. So, oh gosh, that was crazy. But anyways, so it's just kind of surrounding yourself around the people that you want to serve. So however you can do that, I've heard coaches say, go to a fancy gym and just start talking to people. There's all kinds of ways to market, but at the end of the day, just be kind of physically in the area that they want to be. And then asking for referrals is necessary. Like, even if your client isn't the right fit, you can tell them exactly what you're looking for. And then they can at least guide other people towards you that are that fit. We were very strict and pre-qualified every single client, though, towards the end, like when we moved to leading with tax advisory. And that's really important, too, because you can't just take anybody. And, you have to be clear with them that you're not the right fit for them.
Yeah, getting to that certain level, especially the higher end, you probably are disqualifying more people than you are taking up, right? You're disqualifying 50% or more of the people that come to you and say, nope, we're not fit for you.
Which is okay, because for that, the 20% that you take or 5% that you take, whatever that number is, you're looking at a $30,000 annual check versus $1,000. And I started at $150 an hour in 2010 as well. So for people that are going back to that leap, just every year, just take incremental steps to raise your minimum bar, that minimum expectation of yourself and your firm and your pricing, and you'll get there eventually, but you can start small, that's fine.
And how do you train yourself or your staff to add these new things, to be that new person?
Well, so you have to look at your client list and say, okay, what's our average client value per year, right? Is it $500 per client or is it $5,000? Okay, it's $500. If I do some pretty simple math, that's not going to get me where I need to go if I want to be a multi-millionaire on my gross revenue side. And so you can literally back into how many clients you need at a certain minimum. And so for me, it ended up being I had to have a client that I was making more than $15,000 a year for them to get the minimum that I needed and for us to serve them the best. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
Awesome.
then the follow-up question, because we're seeing trends a lot throughout these last 2 days, is about firing the client. The audience didn't ask this exact question, but what they said was, how do you tell someone they're not the right fit?
Okay, so I'm going to be glib, but
You, glib?
yes, I know.
No.
Imagine that. Double your price.
Well,
Right.
that
Or
was a-
triple.
Double your price. Well, just follow the math. Double the price.
Yeah, yeah,
double
yeah.
your price for everybody. Are you going to lose 50% of the people?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, what's stopping you?
Yeah.
Because what I'm just telling you is if you do that, you're going to work less and make more.
That sounds pretty cool.
But
Well, and I think since I'm in law firms now, and like the big law firms, the way their revenue growth almost every year, the biggest percentage is they raise their rates every single year, right?
Yeah.
And it's come to be expected. And yeah, sure, you're going to get some pushback, which ironically is usually from the biggest clients with the most money that don't want to pay the extra money. But most of them are like, okay, sure, the prices of everything are going up, right? Why shouldn't your prices go up?
Right. Yeah, there's always the cost of living adjustment, inflation, all those things. But yeah, I forgot my train of thought. It was something about Ed, and I'll come back to it.
It's always something
Ed's
about it.
glib.
He said double the for everyone, and will you lose half the people?
I have this Facebook group called Accounting Firm Influencers. We have about 8,000 accountants there.
Say that again, because I know we're going to get questions.
Accounting Firm Influencers is my Facebook group. We have about 8,000 accountants there. And it's one of the top active participating groups on Facebook. And every day I'm hearing people saying, oh, I doubled my prices, I tripled my prices, no one left. And they're like, why didn't they leave? Yes. So people are not leaving. I'm hoping that as they're doubling prices, they're also doing some value adds there too, right?
You hope
Right.
to.
That's right.
And really honing in on that one thing that they really are passionate about, have a purpose around, and can really bring the most profits.
And that's why we set expectations. We do have a minimum that we come and take on, and we do project and let them know what they're expected to pay. So
Yeah.
there shouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah.
But setting that expectation, I mean, to your point, I've done that in my career too, is I've doubled the prices. And of course, you got to provide value. And I mean, the nice thing about CAS, it is very sticky. You are very integrated. So if you do that, you probably get away with it for a while, but you want to make sure the clients stay with you because you're providing that value.
Yeah.
And I have a follow-up question, but I think, Gail, do we need to take one more break?
We can do that right now, sure.
I think Kane's earned the right to
Do I get you?
ring the
Do I
bell.
get you? Should I
Oh,
do
he's
it?
in the zone.
Here I go. 1, 2.
Wait.
Right, 1, 2.
Wait. We haven't even displayed it
Well,
yet.
I was too excited.
You were too excited.
That was my practice one.
Every time the bell goes off, I'm thinking of Breaking Bad.
Right?
So let me know. I want give me the
That's
key.
the lead up to the fact that we are now going to display the third CPE code.
He's been talking about this since
I've been
last night.
excited. This is my goal in life. Now my life is complete. So thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, so be sure to write down that CPE code if you're planning on collecting CPE for this session, and thank you,
The
Kane, for
follow-up, thank you, Kate.
You're
I
welcome.
think the follow-up question, Jackie, that came from the audience is how are you paying your staff? Are they hourly or salary? If you're,
Great question. So I definitely believe in being lean. So when I first started my practice, I had a lot of subcontractors, which is fine in Texas, okay? So don't get into the state debate. But, they still were able to kind of specialize in different areas so that I could delegate. I was not good at delegating. I still micromanaged everything. So once I, kind of really let go of things, I started to value my staff. I think every entrepreneur does this, but first you value the clients the most because they're what's paying you, making your living. And then once your team's big enough, you start valuing your people even more, right? And so you want to reward them. And that's what's so wonderful about value pricing is that you can price 3 to 5 times more, and that means you can pay your staff more. And in this economy where everyone's been demanding 30% or more in salary since COVID, how the heck is anyone going to keep up with that if they don't increase that top line as well?
True.
Thank you. So now there's pricing questions coming in up the wazoo. So Ed, are you ready?
Sure. Bring it on.
What are the building blocks or drivers for de-stemming a value price?
What are the building blocks or drivers for what?
That word is confusing me. For coming up with a value price.
Well, so let me give you my definition, a working definition of a value price. Value price is a price in which the primary, but not sole determining factor into the price is the perceived value of the customer. So if by using that definition, what you must do is have what I call a value conversation. Jackie, you alluded to this earlier. We have to have a conversation with the customer about what their perception of the value is. Now, some of that is measurable. We can certainly measure many of those things. We can reduce their tax rate. We can decrease costs. We can perhaps even help them increase revenue. So those are some things that are measurable. But there are also things that I will call intangible, or what I like to refer to as spiritual value, that is beyond. It doesn't mean religious, right? It's just beyond the materialism of this world. What's the value of peace of mind? For some people, it's really high, right? So those are the things that factor into the price. So again, the value price is one in which the perceived value is not the sole determinant, but it is the primary input, as opposed to a cost plus price, which is where the primary input into the price is your costs.
Understood.
Right? So if you're figuring a cost and putting a multiplier on it, that's cost plus pricing. If you are having a conversation with the customer about the perception of value and then setting price commensurate with that value, not equal to, but commensurate, some relationship to it, then that's value-led pricing. So think of it as, use the word led, cost-led pricing or value-led pricing.
Like
and what
that.
we've been coaching people to do is value-led pricing.
Thank you. As I'm looking through these other questions, someone's asking if they want to join your Facebook group. I assume that you want them to join your Facebook group.
Yes, thank you.
Say it one more time.
Accounting Firm Influencers Facebook group.
All right. Do you let, I would assume this is a yes, do you let them know about the increase in price before you do the work? At the law firm, we used to wait till the end of the first quarter to raise our rates. I'm like, you got to raise them in December because otherwise we're losing all that money, the work you're doing January through April, right? How do you let them know? And then what if you face resistance? When do you let them know?
Well, that's what's, again, so great about value pricing is it's done up front. And so you don't do any work until you have agreement from the client. I mean, the last thing you want is to surprise your client with a bill. I mean, that's going to get you a thumbs down review, right? Nobody wants that discussion. So always quote pricing up front, and then you don't have any problems on the back end. And even in your initial onboarding experience or engagement letter, you could state every year that you revisit pricing or maybe have a certain percentage that you automatically increase it. But I like to do a phased approach where I would revisit the client's subscription package and the tax strategies and CAS work we were doing, and then say, look, I think I may have found some new things we can do for a new phased approach here.
Yeah, and we do is we actually walk through the first 3-4 months, the invoice in detail with them. So we do like an account review, a monthly account review, and actually walk through the fees and the value that's being provided, and talking about here's what we've changed, here's the impact, and here's also the fees and who's done what. So we do that, and then as you look at the next year in our statement of work, we do have increases that are built into there, but we proactively communicate that to them. the last thing you want to do is send an invoice and it's a big surprise. So being proactive, and then the other thing is when you look at the budget, so as part of our project management office, we do have budget to actuals in our weekly status report. So it talks about hours and value, so that as we are working with our clients, they understand what value we're providing and there's not a surprise. So we try to be as proactive as we can, because the last thing you want to do is send a invoice over the fence and they get mad and you lose a client.
Right.
So that's a key part of what we do.
Bill and duck.
Yeah. or hide.
And this is for you, and it's in all caps.
Oh. So you have to shout it at me.
But with the perceived value versus cost base, someone else eventually will undercut you. So how do you deal with that?
Yes, good. I don't want those people. Good.
Yeah.
Bye. Let them go.
They don't understand the intangibles.
I want to attract people who are attracted to what I do.
Yes.
Right. Or why I do it. And if somebody's looking for a lower price, you can always find somebody who's going to do it for a lower price. I don't want to play in that game. I don't want to be McDonald's, right? Now, I think that's a strategy. You can be extraordinarily successful, but pick what the strategy is. If the strategy is high end, then you say, yep. I had this guy, when he would regularly get people say, you are twice as much as the next person. And he said, only twice as much. That was his response.
Yeah.
I mispriced this one because usually it's 3 to 4. Right? If you're not convicted about your price, if you're not convicted about your value, they're certainly not going to be. But that's why the importance of that value conversation is you don't tell them the value, they tell you.
It's true.
Yeah.
They tell you.
Okay, so let's flip it to outsourcing. You don't want to do this. Forget it. It's not for you. You want to stick with the tax return. How do you find people should you outsource it? Is that dangerous? How do you find people to outsource it to?
I'm not a person to ask that. So
You're going to lose a ton of money. I mean, the highest net profit margin work is advisory work. And I've actually compared it across the board for outsourced CFO services, any of that stuff. The highest net profit margin is actually tax advisory work. I mean, you're looking at 40, 60%, sometimes 70% plus. So yeah, if you really want to stick with your low margin work, then yeah, you can outsource it or partner with someone. We have people in the Facebook group that partner up a lot. Or, come to the CAS guy right here. But yeah, I mean, that's everyone's right to decide where they want to hone in on and specialize and go from there.
True.
Are we ready to do a wrap-up, Gail, or we have a few
I think
more
we
minutes?
want to do just what are your takeaways? What can people do, not today because they're here, but after today?
Right now.
I think we want to join our Facebook group. That's what I want to do.
Put that on your list. Yeah.
They have 5 more
else can
sessions
people do when they leave this event to move themselves a step closer, at least, and to hopefully get into the zone of creating and moving into their whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. You want to start with me?
Yeah.
I will start with you.
We'll start with me. Okay. I am going to suggest reading a book that is 25 years old, and it was one of the most influential in my career. It is by Peter Block, B-L-O-C-K, and the book is called The Answer to How is Yes. Which is a great title, and in which he postulates that there are how questions and what matters questions, and how do you shift the conversation from around the how, and which includes how much and how long, to what really matters to the customer. So the answer to how is yes.
Okay.
Oh gosh, okay, so much to pack in here. Well, first of all, Ed was humble because he didn't mention how important mentoring and coaching is. And so go to someone like Ed who does those things specifically. Surround yourself with people that are going to hold you accountable, lift you up, give you the confidence to know that you can do that higher pricing. Another thing that we didn't get to discuss that I have to say is the fact that I got tired of not having any guidance around how to price, and I created my own pricing method. So I have a calculator out there. It's in the Accounting Firm Influencer group. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Jackie Meyer CPA, and I'd be happy to send it over. But it's been pretty transformational to everyone that's used it.
Yeah, I think what's special about this, our profession, is the openness to share and to share about our failures. And I've failed many times in my career, and having the opportunity when I started in the last 5-6 years in CAS was meeting with other CAS practice leaders, meet with folks like yourselves, and ask those questions, and ask if you had to do it again, what would you do? and learn about from them, learn those experiences. I mean, there's wonderful organizations you can read, but nothing better getting together with people that are in the trenches, that are doing that work, and learning from them. And that's what I've done in my career, and it's helped me to kind of expedite where I am today. And I recommend all those folks out there today, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to have a conversation and provide my insight.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Ed, Dr. Jackie, Kane, thank you all so much for sharing your insights. This has been a really, really valuable and interesting session. I hope you all enjoyed it. We're going to take a quick break. We will be back with, if you're thinking of adding advisory services, we're going to lead you in a direction where you might be able to add business license management as a service to your firm. That's the next session.